All right, what's good, guys? My name is Ted, and if you don't know me, I run an Etsy 3D printing business, making about $500 to $700 a month in total sales, as you can see here. And so I'm going to be walking through the 5 things I wish I knew when I was starting up my 3D printing business in order to achieve success much quicker. So as you can see here, I've been working on my Etsy shop for the past year or so, and I've had about 4,700 total dollars in revenue. And the catch is, I've only done this with just a single 3D printer. I don't have an entire print farm behind me like other YouTubers. I just have one 3D printer and I'm pulling in about five to $700 a month, like I said. And I'll talk about how I was able to hit that with just one printer, not a print farm. And honestly, it was like a $300 cost up front. And I don't really run anything crazy. Like you can honestly see here, it's a little unorganized. It could be a little bit better for the camera. I'm not gonna lie. But it's not like you have to have a print farm to actually hit successful numbers each month. And I'll talk a little bit about that more later in the video. But first, I'm going to talk about the first point. You need to design your own products when it comes to having a successful shop. You can do research on the perfect printer, you can learn all the different CAD softwares, you can learn all the different platforms, but none of that matters if your idea is crap. You need to have a good idea. This is something that you want to build up and something you really want to focus on. And I touch really in depth in some of my other videos about this, but the reason I see you need to have a good idea is because I use this fishing analogy for this specifically. If you wanted to catch a fish, would you rather go to a lake with, hundreds of boats on the lake, all searching for fish at the same time? It's loud, there's lots of engines roaring. Maybe the fish are a little bit scared away because of that. Or would you rather go by the pond by your house that you know the trail to get to? It might be a little bit harder to get there, but you've lived there your whole life. You know exactly where to go to catch the fish, and you almost get to catch every single time. Like obviously, you're going to choose this option here, the pond right by your house, the place you've gone your entire life, not the crowded lake. And I use that analogy for selling 3D printed products when it comes to Etsy because a lot of people will sell, the articulated dragons or fidget toys, stuff that's already, super, super populated and super oversaturated, much like this lake here. You do have more fish. It's not like the pond. You don't have as many fish in the pond, but it's going to be much harder to actually catch that fish because there's so many people trying to catch them compared to the pond. You might not have as much volume, it might be a little bit harder to get there, but in the end, you're going to have a higher success rate and you're going to have more sales. You're going to have a higher percentage overall. And that is why I say the idea is the most important part here. That was a terrible arrow, but the idea is the most important part here because if your idea sucks or if you're just taking things that are already made, you're going to be in way too much of a competition. So you need to design your own products to be successful. And I can't remember if I already said this, but I only have 3 different products on my shop, and it brings me in that $500 to $700 a month. And it's because I designed it. And that's the other thing. It's more sustainable. If everybody's out here fishing every day, eventually the fish are going to run out. Maybe it's like a trend. Maybe the articulated dragons are not going to sell forever, but a product that you design yourself solves a very unique problem specific to, your hobbies, your interests, the things you do day to day. You're going to have a much better chance at catching fish consistently. And I'm sure if you went to the pond every day by your house that nobody else goes to, you're going to have a higher success rate of catching those fish. So that's an analogy I like to use, and the reason that you should be designing your own products. And to dive a little further, like I said, like don't sell this 3D printed slop here, like the articulated dragon. Like sell something that solves people's problems. And like I said, something that you do day to day, your hobbies, your interests. That way it's fun and it's enjoyable. And bro, you're gonna end up like this guy right here. Super, super happy and joyous because he only has 3 different products he's selling. They solve specific problems, and he doesn't have to worry about the competition coming in and stealing his idea. And another thing I like to say is take advantage of your 3D printer's manufacturing capabilities when it comes to creating your different products. You can make things that are customizable. You could add people's names. You could sell different sizes or sizes specific to a certain measurement somebody has, for example. It sometimes has cheaper production, sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes products are much cheaper when they're injection molded or something of the like. But you are going to have cheaper production in some cases. And I'll talk about it in a second with my best selling product. That really helped me out to be successful. The other thing is that you can make on demand. You don't need to stock inventory or pay somebody to store your products. You can just print them on demand. You don't need to have a full stock of it, and you don't need to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to stock these products that might not even sell in the first place. You can really test ideas fast and often, which I touch on here. Not every idea you're going to have is going to be perfect, but the nice thing about 3D printing is you can test ideas out fastly and see what works, which ties in with this point too. It's a very cheap startup cost for business. Like I said, I only paid $350, $400 for my A1, Bambu Lab A1, and I think it's dropped down to 300 now. So it doesn't cost a lot of money to start this business. So that's why it's also very competitive. And that's why, like I said, the idea is the most important part. Now, I know a lot of people's worries when starting a 3D printing business and designing their own products. The first thing that comes to mind is CAD. It's a little difficult to learn these softwares, I'm not going to lie, but your products don't have to be super complicated. This is my best-selling product here, and as you can see, it's just literally a circle with a triangle, bro. That's it. It's nothing crazy. You don't need to make it crazy complicated with mechanisms and gears. It's literally just a circle with a triangle. But what does it do? It solves a problem specific to a niche, specific to the sewing niche. Therefore, people want it. And the result of solving problems and understanding those problems and creating products specific to that and taking advantage of those 3D printing capabilities is you have a winning product that has had me a total of $5,000 in total revenue with just a singular product. So don't overcomplicate things. You can learn CAD for free on YouTube. I pretty much learned all of my CAD skills for free on YouTube. But what I didn't learn and what I had to learn over time was how to make those winning products. And that's what I'm telling you guys, solve the real world problems. I go into way more specifics in some of my other videos. But at the end of the day, I want you to take away the fact that you need to design your own products to really be successful in the 3D printing business space. Now, with that, next point. So, number 2, you only need one printer to be successful. However, you have to make at least $8 to $10 in profit per sale for this to work. Like I said, I got a single 3D printer right here, bro. I'm not like the other YouTubers who have 15 plus printers, and I'm reasonable about it. I understand how much I can bring in per month. So if I'm selling something at $10 per day and best month ever, I don't know, I'm selling one item per day, that's $10 a day. Now, there's 30 days in a month. So I can, with max one sale per day, I can make $300 a month in profit. Now, that's a sale a day. Sometimes you're going to have more, sometimes you're going to have less in total profit. But, if you can expand those margins, it'd even be better. 15 days times 30. It's going to be rough mental math, bro. I'm not going to lie. 30, $450 a month. Pass with it. That's $450 a month if you're making $15 per profit per sale. And I honestly think the max you can do with a single printer is 2 sales per day, depending on your product. I mean, if it is something that does print much quicker, but I just like to put that bottleneck on myself. And honestly, it's going to be pretty hard to get 2 sales a day unless you have like a banging product. But if you hit that, you're making $20 a day times 30. That's $500 a month. That's pretty solid. And you're basically paying off your printer each month with these products. And honestly, I think the reason why I haven't reached this level personally is just the amount of products I have. I only have 3 products, and I should probably dedicate more time personally to creating more products and expanding into different niches. And that's kind of my next part of me growing in the 3D printing space. Like I said, I've only been doing this for a year, but I think the biggest things I'm talking about this video are like the bones of the business. It's something that you need to know to actually keep growing and expanding. A lot of this is just the start in getting to this $500 a month in profit per sale or per month with a 3D printer with the profit. So that contextualizes, why you need to have that $8 to $10 in profit per sale. And that also contextualizes my last point as to why you need to make products that are your own, that solve people's problems, that are unique, because then you can actually justify selling it at that high of a margin. If you have your stupid articulated dragon here, you can print a bunch in one print bed, sure. But if you're only making like $1 per sale, you're going to have to sell 10 of these, ship 10 packages, and go to the post office 10 times to just make just to make the same amount as $10 a day per sale. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, you're going to be doing so much more work to get the $10 by taking somebody else's product when you could just make your own. Maybe it's a little bit bigger on your build plate. Maybe you can print two or three. I'm not confining it to that, but it just goes to show that quantity doesn't beat quality in this business. And if you really want to have a successful shop, you're going to have to make something that's truly unique and doesn't have a bunch of competition. The other thing that goes with that is upsales. So, like I said, this is my most successful product here. The pattern weight, this is the base. I believe it's $18.99 for the set of 4, and I get $9 per profit per sale. But I also have this case here, and that allows me to have $14 of profit per sale with the upsell. If you can find creative ways to upsell your product and get a higher profit margin, that's when you can really, really hit those benchmarks. If I sell 2 of these per day, I'm making $30 a day, 30 days in a month. That's $900 in profit a month. That is some solid side income coming in from just a single 3D printer, which it's only 2 build plates a day. I could realistically attain that with just a single printer. And that's why I don't think getting crazy about getting, 5 or 6, even more printers right away is the best idea. You need to find those winning products first. So like I said, you only need one printer to be successful and really hit the ground running and start making some real money on the side with your 3D printer. Now, the next point I want to say is using Etsy as your driver for more sales. So the way I'm going to be honest, this is something I'm experimenting with right now. I'm not a total expert on this, but it is something that I think makes sense when you're trying to grow your Etsy shop. So you can use Etsy as kind of your driver. It's like your engine for your 3D printing business. Why is that? It already has warm traffic. It already has people on the website who are willing to buy, willing to spend money on products, and they're going to have way less of a barrier when it comes to purchasing your products. And the lower that barrier and the better your product is, obviously, the more sales you're going to get. It helps you find those winning products on Etsy fast. So you don't need to spend a bunch on ads to see what's winning. You can just list your product, and sure, you do have to pay the listing fees, but that's going to be much cheaper than buying ads and kind of seeing if it's going to work for a product. It lets you understand what works for the product, and it also helps you generate reviews, which I'll talk about in the next point. But it helps you generate the reviews and helps you understand what's working with this product and those winning products. And once you can do that, you can feed it into your Shopify. You can use Facebook ads. And personally, I talk about this in one of my other videos, but I've been using Claude in Facebook and honestly kind of Shopify too with Claude. And it's really helping me out be kind of like a business partner because, I don't know everything in the world when it comes to e-commerce, but Claude sure does know a lot more than me and how to sell my products. I can feed Claude all of this information from my Etsy of why, for example, my pattern weight is a super successful product and help create copy for ads, create images for ads with Higgsfield, which is an AI image generation platform, which you can generate images of your product, people using your product in an authentic way based on your reviews. Now that ties into the next point, reviews. I think getting reviews early was the reason that my shop was so successful almost right off the bat. I got a lot of reviews very early. This is my shop. I have 63 reviews and I have a couple of like 4 stars, which is really annoying because like I'm gonna go on a little tangent here. But some of them are like they enjoy the product fully. They had no bad words, but they're like, I'm gonna give you a 4 star. What is that? Why? Anyways, getting reviews early. What I did to do this was creating handwritten notes for my customers. So whenever they ordered something, I would simply write a letter to them in the order, shipping it out. I said, "Thank you for your order." I wrote their name. "I hope you enjoy the product." And then I added a catered message toward my niche. So like I said earlier, my niche is the sewing tools space. I love to sew. I have a background in apparel design. So it's a niche I know a lot about. I know all the problems within it. But I created this catered message. I think it was like, I hope you enjoyed creating or happy crafting, something cliche along those lines. And then I said, as a small business, a review would mean a lot. And I just signed my name. It shows that you actually care about the product and what you're giving to the customer. And especially if you're solving a very niche and specific problem, they're going to understand that you are a part of their community and they're going to want to sign that and, pay it forward, give you a reward. People generally like to support small businesses, so by adding this, people are a little bit more inclined to leave a review. I would say I stopped doing this because, I got my basis of reviews and I don't really get that many reviews, and Etsy does kind of incentivize it too. But I would say like almost I got 50% more ads, or not ads, 50% more reviews because I added this handwritten note to it. Now, what do the reviews even do? Why is it so important? The first thing is that it really helps out with the algorithm. When people see reviews of people like them saying that they enjoy this product, that you should purchase this product, they're going to be more inclined to purchase it. But it also helps out with the Etsy algorithm. When they see a lot of good reviews, like obviously it's going to boost the product because Etsy's like, oh, this product is good. People like it. People like Catherine, who bought the product, is going to like it. So let's push it towards them. So that is the reason why reviews are important for the algorithm. It also helps you understand the strengths of the product as well as the weaknesses. So when you're going to Shopify and Facebook and creating your ads, you can speak to those strengths of why the product is perfect. I think somebody said for my pattern weight, it's like a game changer. It makes their process much better. It holds the corners down, unlike other pattern weights. It helps you understand the product and what works when it comes to advertising towards your customers when you get to that. And that I literally just said the next point before I even brought it up. It adds that social proof later for Shopify and ads when it comes to growing outside of Etsy and growing your shop. It also creates a compounding effect. When you get good reviews, you understand the product, therefore you can make better products. You can make the ads better for the product, and therefore you get more sales. And with more sales, you get more reviews, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very compounding effect that has an exponential return if you can get good reviews off rip. Now, the fifth point is more of a, I guess it's like a vibes based thing. Consistency really beats perfection when it comes to creating a 3D printing business. And what I like to tell people is that this business rewards being quick, being innovative, and really thinking on your feet and coming up with ideas fast and not always expecting them to do great. What 3D printing allows you to do is come up with an idea, test it out fast. You can have an idea, and in literally 5 hours, you can have a finished product. Like, that is crazy to think about. That is honestly, like, we live in a very special time for that to be able to happen, for it to be possible. So really set aside to be consistent. And that's how you find those winning products. Set aside time each week to come up with product ideas, to enhance your product development, and really develop those products in CAD, learn different skills. Me personally, I know CAD, like I said, is a big issue with a lot of people when it comes to this business and starting it. But the best way to approach any software I've learned is to jump headfirst into it with an idea you already have in mind. It's better to not watch 5 hours of tutorials on a software and then forget it all. It's better to be like, okay, I have this idea. How do I want to do it with my pattern weight? How do I create a circle and how do I extrude it? How do I add this triangle on it so it holds the edges down? Like, literally Google one by one your questions you have in this software and how to do something. And that is how you learn, because you're actually applying it, not, watching some tutorial and forgetting the information right away. And I know I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but that is what really helped me when it came to learning CAD softwares. Also set aside time each week for shop optimization. Really visit your shop. Are my images good enough? Can my product description be better? Which I have a really good video on how to increase conversions from your description. But really thinking about every single aspect of your shop and how to make that better really helps out and really compounds if you do that consistently and really understand your customer and why they're purchasing the product. And that is why these reviews are so important here. God awful circle. But that's why these reviews are so important here. It really helps you understand the customer, why they're buying your product, and then you can speak to that. Or even I've had customers come to me with ideas, and having genuine conversation with your customers really helps you come up with more ideas that are actually catered towards the user in the end. And I promise you guys, if you do all five of these steps when it comes to starting a 3D printing business, you're going to be way ahead of other people who are starting. You're going to be way quicker than 99% of other people who are starting their 3D printing businesses if you just be consistent. I think that's the name of the game. Set aside time each week to see what you can do better, come up with ideas, and really find those pain points. And those are my 5 points. We'll go over them again real quick here. So, design your own products, You only need one printer to start to be successful. Use Etsy as the driver for your products. Get reviews as much as possible at the start. I can't stress that enough. And be consistent, like I said. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you took something away from it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments down below, and have a great rest of your day.